Reacting to the 49ers free agency moves. The first move that I'm going to talk about is the re-signing of Arik Armstead. To start off, the 49ers re-signed him to a 5-year, $85 million deal with $48.5 million guaranteed. My first thought when I heard this, what are we doing? We basically wasted all of our salary cap on a guy that was only good for 1 year. Look at the stats. In his first year with the 49ers, he got 2 sacks and 19 tackles. In his second year, he got 2.5 sacks and 15 tackles. In his third year, he got 1.5 sacks and 16 tackles. In his third year, he only got 3 sacks and 48 tackles. And in his final year of his contract, he got 10 sacks and 54 tackles. It seems to me that this is one of those cases where the player in their contract year does extremely well. And while I would like to keep the defensive line around, it hurts to know that we could have used some of that money to re-sign a receiver that we really need, Emmanuel Sanders. Overall, though, it will be nice to have him back, and I hope that he can perform his best. The second player that the 49ers re-signed is Ben Garland, who they signed to a 1-year, $2 million deal. This move in particular I like, as the 49ers offensive line performed well last year in protecting Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a solid starter and should be a good fit on the line again. The third player that the 49ers re-signed was Sean Coleman, who they signed to a 1-year, $887,000 deal. This move I don't particularly care about, as Sean Coleman never really starts anyway. However, it's always nice to have another offensive lineman for depth purposes, as they are one of the most injured positions in the NFL. The fourth player that the 49ers re-signed was Ronald Blair, who they signed to a 1-year, $1,047,500 deal. This move I particularly like, as he was a good rotational player on the line. Here are his stats. He recorded 3 sacks and 21 tackles, and he only played half the year due to an ACL tear he suffered in Week 9 against the Seattle Seahawks. The last player that the 49ers re-signed was Jimmy Ward, who they signed to a 3-year, $13 million deal. This move I'm iffy about. Ward, who was a first-round draft pick in 2014, is often injured, except for last year. This is where it leads back to Arik Armstead, as I am also afraid that Jimmy Ward could be one of those players who performs well in their contract year. However, I'm not super worried about this, as most of the reasons that Jimmy Ward hasn't been a clear-cut starter in the past is due to his body and not his performance of play. In fact, Ward actually had some pretty good stats last year. In the 2019 season, Ward recorded 1 sack and 65 tackles, which is the most he's had in each of those categories. Now on to the next category, which is people who the 49ers signed. The first person that the 49ers signed was linebacker Joe Walker, who they signed to a 1-year, $900,000 deal. I like this move, as he could put depth at the linebacker position, especially after losing linebacker Elijah Lee to the Detroit Lions in free agency. The next person that the 49ers signed was wide receiver Travis Benjamin, who they signed to a 1-year deal. Unfortunately, I do not know how much they signed him to. I sort of like this move, as the 49ers do need a receiver, except we need an elite receiver, or a receiver like Emmanuel Sanders, and that's not who Travis Benjamin is at all. Instead, Travis Benjamin is more of a kick returner, which we don't really need because we have Richie James. So I really don't know what the 49ers were thinking here, as he's really not going to provide anything in the pass-catching game, like at all. The third person that the 49ers signed was offensive lineman Tom Compton, who they signed to a 1-year deal. Unfortunately, I do not know how much they signed him to. I like this move, as it provides depth to the offensive lineman position, who, as I said earlier in the video, is one of the most injured positions in the NFL. The last person that the 49ers signed was defensive lineman Kerry Hyder, who they signed to a 1-year, $1.5 million deal with $550,000 of that guaranteed. In my opinion, this was a strange move, as the 49ers have a lot of defensive linemen on their roster. To me, it honestly seems just like wasted money that we could have spent elsewhere. Like earlier in the video, as I said, the receiver position, which we really need at this moment. The next category is players that the 49ers released. Luckily, this is only one player. That player is offensive lineman Mike Person. When I saw this, I thought it was a strange move, as he was a starter most of the year, including in the Super Bowl. However, I think they did this because they wanted to clear some cap space for other players. However, guys like Sean Coleman, Tim Compton, and Ben Garland could replace him. So this move didn't mean much to me. The next category is players that the 49ers tendered. The first player that the 49ers tendered is wide receiver Kendrick Bourne. I like this move, as the 49ers need receiver depth, and he was a good red zone threat. In 2019, he was targeted 44 times, received 30 of those passes, for 358 yards, and 5 touchdowns. In the future, I think Jimmy Garoppolo could target him a lot more as Emmanuel Sanders is not there anymore. The second player that the 49ers tendered is running back Matt Breida. This move didn't really surprise me as he's a young running back and adds depth to the position. However, the 49ers really don't need depth at the running back position with Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, and Tevin Coleman. Matt Breida is also often injured, so in my opinion, they should have just let him go. Now on to the last category, which is trades. Now there's one player that the 49ers traded, and that is defensive lineman DeForest Buckner. This is what I thought of the trade. I'm done. This was an awful trade. Awful. DeForest Buckner has been a super solid player on the line. He's only missed 1 game in his 4-year career with the 49ers. 1, and he's a defensive lineman. That is hard to find, and I don't know if the 49ers can replace that. The only way I see this trade leaving me satisfied is if the 49ers either get Jerry Jeudy or Odell Beckham Jr. However, this is so unlikely as Jerry Jeudy is probably going to go to the 2 picks in front of us, either the Jets or the Raiders. And I don't feel that CeeDee Lamb or Henry Ruggs will mix with Deebo Samuel. As for Odell, I doubt the 49ers will want to make a push for him, as we seem to be a conservative team. I have this man's signature on my hat. And they're just going to trade him away like that? Come on! What are we thinking? Overall, this was the worst move of the offseason, and I don't see this paying off at all. Those were the 49ers' 2020 free agency moves. Thank you for watching.